We have a vision of promoting the beauty of Central Otago's natural environment and wildlife, whilst making the general public and the Department of Conservation a big influence in our future goals, in order to preserve and sustain our beautiful environment. As we are just starting up, our vision for the next 5 years is to build upon a very well looked after sanctuary, based in one location in Dunedin, right in the heart of the Central Otago region. This allows us to take care of a majority of the conservation aspects. Based on our 5-year financial projections, we estimate to be in a good financial position. And with this capital, we aim to reinvest back into the community through the use of sponsorships, with an overall goal of expanding throughout the country, therefore increasing awareness of these endangered animals and wildlife. Our mission at the Dunedin Wildlife Sanctuary as a non-profit organisation is primarily dedicated to the conservation and education of Dunedin's wildlife. In order to accomplish our goals, we would have a twofold mission to become successful. Firstly and primarily being the conservation of wildlife within the sanctuary, and a second large focus on the education aspect to visitors and the general public with the aid of DOC.
The strategy which we will use in order to pursue our future aspirations and to make the mission a reachable target involves 3 primary goals which we have set for ourselves. 1. To be highly involved in and greatly influence the conservation of species and wildlife. 2. To educate customers, the general public and advocates for wildlife. And 3. To provide not only entertainment but awareness to families and visitors of the sanctuary. These goals provide us with a vision, giving us direction, which in turn allows us to focus on our task at hand. We aim to coincide with these previously set goals in order to allocate our time and resources effectively, whilst being able to measure how successful we have been in implementing these set goals. Based on the effect the funding has on the sanctuary and how aware the public become of preserving our wildlife will determine the success of the company. These can easily be assigned to different aspects of our sanctuary, such as the DOC being the main influence towards conservation, compared to the general public being our primary target for education. Our 5-year financial projections give us a realistic time constraint to work with in order to measure our success in various aspects, be it financial awareness for the region's wildlife, or by the simple increase in the amount of visitors we have, signifying that more people are interested in helping preserve our wildlife and or increase their awareness of such issues. As you're able to see from these 3 primary goals, the scope and future organisation of our sanctuary have a large reliance on the involvement of the DOC and the public. Our main issues due to this will obviously be to do with financing, which will have 3 main sources. Firstly, we've been able to, through the large help of the DOC and MPI, be granted a huge helping hand from government funding, which is essential in our non-profit company. Secondly, we have been able to seek a significant amount of funding through private investors who are actively engaged in the conservation and well-being of our wildlife and natural environment. Our final strategy for sourcing funds is from our own personal contribution, this being the lesser of the 3 sources, but will nonetheless be required for our goals to be achieved. The direction and scope of the business will depend solely on the goals and strategic management in which we will implement in order to make it a successful business venture. We have also taken into account the possible changing environment, giving us an advantage through our configuration of resources aimed at the education and conservation, whilst also satisfying our shareholders and DOC expectations.
Looking towards the future, there are numerous factors and inputs which will direct our non-profit and contribute to what we can achieve. A large part of these macro and industry level factors will come down to attitude and perception from others. The government and subsets such as MPI and DOC are hugely influential in a non-profit. Funding from grants, cutting red tape, influence from parties with a focus on preservation of our environment are all things we will need. By having such groups on our side, we'll be able to achieve so much more than operating solely as an operation away from government assistance. This perception of doing good is also influential in terms of the public eye. Donations and volunteering from the public will greatly assist what we aim to achieve, both growing what we can do and also speeding the process up. By having a positive rapport, our vision and mission will be aided greatly. This means we will have a large focus on garnering goodwill and having a positive effect on the Otago region. As we are a non-profit, competition from others is a slightly different factor to consider. competitors, such as other sanctuaries, can be a wealth of knowledge and help, which is hugely beneficial, but can also draw attention, funding, and volunteers away from our focus and to others. On the whole, having other non-profits focusing on preservation of species is a largely positive one, as we can work together with resources, knowledge, and information as we all share a similar vision and mission. Economically, we will need to attain money to fund missions and staff, but we will also have a large amount of input from donations and volunteers, which will cover a significant proportion of costs. As a non-profit, all funds will be reinvested into conservation, plantation, and ensuring we remain pest-free. The sanctuary can act as a draw card to the area, which will boost the economy, but also raise awareness around what we're going to achieve. Due to New Zealand having a stable and relatively high GDP, we anticipate there is a large opportunity to source funds from both the public and the government. This well-paid demographic is a large factor in our strategy. Once again, this directs our future strategic decision-making towards ensuring we are viewed positively and can be shown to be making great leaps in terms of the conservation and promotion of flora and fauna within Otago. Finally, cultural factors will play a large role in our direction. New Zealand is heavily influenced by the clean green image we portray, and a huge amount of the population wishes to continue and better this through initiatives such as our own.
We can create a competitive advantage at the Dunedin Wildlife Sanctuary through our core competencies. Value. At the Dunedin Wildlife Sanctuary, we believe we have the opportunity to create something that nobody else in the Otago region has. The establishment of a wildlife sanctuary would create something of great value that many people would travel to see. Capitalising on New Zealand's unique natural beauty and wildlife, we can create something that nobody else has. Tourism is a huge industry in New Zealand, and the Wildlife Sanctuary will provide a place for guests to visit and experience our natural beauty, as well as gain an education around Otago and New Zealand's natural environment. A wildlife sanctuary is such a big project that it's very hard to imitate. With all the necessary development and funding, it would be very hard for a competitor to establish a competing sanctuary. It is a very unique opportunity to establish a nature reserve. The uniqueness of it provides a sustainable competitive edge. Rarity. Otago currently has nothing like we have planned at the Dunedin Wildlife Sanctuary. Once established, it would provide a rare experience that cannot be found in many places around the world. Otago and New Zealand have the privilege of having a range of uniquely beautiful flora and fauna only found here. With the establishment of a wildlife sanctuary, we can showcase this beauty in a natural and predator-free way very near to a major city. This up-close experience with our natural wildlife is a very good experience which gives us a competitive edge over others in the tourism market. Non-sustainability. We believe our competitive edge is sustainable at the Dunedin Wildlife Sanctuary due to the uniqueness of the experience we want to offer. Also with the fact of the high cost and high level of development that is needed to create a rival for what we wish to offer, we believe our competitive edge is highly sustainable.
This brings us to our SWOT analysis. Hold on. I reckon I should say something like this brings us to our SWOT analysis. We've identified, oh no, but it's already strengths, weakness, opportunity, sorry. This brings us to our SWOT analysis. Strengths. Located close to a major city, meaning easier access and higher visitor numbers. New Zealand's clean, eco-friendly image and beautiful natural flora and fauna. Strong tourist numbers with a strong interest in ecotourism. Cruise ships regularly stop in Dunedin. A pest-free area, making it easy for native wildlife to thrive. Strong support from the government and departments such as DOC. Weaknesses. Non-profit, making it hard to gain the necessary funding to sustain the park and launch new initiatives. It will take a long time period before the area is established and pest-free. It's difficult to get rare and endangered wildlife into the sanctuary. It also has a high initial startup cost. Opportunities. The government aim to make New Zealand predator-free by 2050. The reintroduction of endangered species into the area. Rapidly growing tourism. It's a rapidly growing tourism industry. A global movement and attitude towards the protection and sustainability of the environment. Threats. Climate change, urbanisation, and predators getting into the sanctuary. So based on our analysis of the new business, why will it be a success? So based on our analysis, we've found 3 main points of success that we can judge the overall success of the company by. These are tasks, technology, and people. The first main point of success is the success of the company's tasks whilst in operation. One of the main tasks of the sanctuary is to maintain and improve habitat for all inhabitants living within the walls of the sanctuary. Through the use of the Habitat Management Plan, we aim to improve the habitat for all wildlife by eradicating pests from the area, whilst also increasing the levels of vegetation and therefore food for the inhabitants. By establishing this Habitat Management Plan, we are constantly able to compare and contrast our actual process with our proposed progress to determine efficiency and success while implementing this plan. This plan includes goals set for both the long run and the short run, such as increasing the quality of habitat outside of the sanctuary and ultimately throughout the entire Otago Peninsula. Our success isn't purely based on the habitat of wildlife. We also strive to educate as many people as possible about these creatures and improve awareness and the importance of them and their habitats have to our ecosystem. Through the education process, we aim to provide a hands-on learning approach which allows visitors to experience firsthand the process of keeping the area pest-free and learn some simple steps into how they are able to control pests within their own households.
Modern technology is increasing in quality by the day, and we aim to take advantage of this. As a wildlife sanctuary, we are always striving to improve the quality of habitat within our sanctuary and in the community. By doing this, we only use pest control methods that we deem have the least impact on the environment as possible. Through the use of biorational materials, it's a relatively non-toxic compound that has little to none negative impact on the environment. This is a proactive step toward our goal of sustainability. The financial backing we've received from the New Zealand Government, DOC and private investors provide us with the support to incorporate these technologies into the daily running of the sanctuary with emphasis towards pest control. We currently have 2 to 3 volunteers situated on the grounds at all times to be involved with pest control 24/7 by maintaining fences, checking traps and ensuring the property stays pest-free. We also have volunteers in schools come in and participate in planting activities, increasing the amount of vegetation, therefore increasing the amount of seeds, rhizomes, tubers and invertebrates used as a food by migratory birds. A strong volunteer team is established to take control of the daily activities of the sanctuary, including maintenance, tour guides and general staff. These tasks and goals are the best values of the sanctuary, and we rely on these to operate effectively and efficiently. As we are not for profit, all extra profits made throughout the financial year will be reinvested back into the community. We aren't able to completely start to track our success until we have been in operation for a couple of years, giving some comparable data to go from. We will deem the business to be a success if we have been able to compete the goals set for ourselves at a high standard.